Hey everybody, it's Cody Walker with the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission's Forest Elwood Crowley's Ridge Nature Center in Jonesboro, Arkansas. And today we're coming at you with another simple, easy recipe that you can cook wild game at the house. And today we're actually going to be frying squirrel. Now, the squirrel we're going to fry today was harvested on a local wildlife management area here in northeast Arkansas. I'm not going to tell you which one, but it's one of my favorite little honey holes. So I was able to harvest some squirrels this past fall, put them in the freezer, and now we're going to be able to cook them for you today. You need just a few things to do this. You're going to need a little bit of flour, you're going to need salt and pepper, and then obviously you're going to need some squirrels that are quartered up. We've got 4 little young gray squirrels here that we're going to cook. You also need a pan with a little bit of vegetable oil in it to fry these squirrels. Now, the way I'm going to cook this today is the way my dad cooks fried squirrel. So I guess we can call this Dan Walker's fried squirrel recipe. Where most people, or even myself most of the time, I'd take one individual piece and really space them out in the pan and try and get them all golden brown. He doesn't do that. He piles all of it in the pan at once and covers it and lets it cook and flips it. And what that does is it makes a lot of cracklings. And at the end of this, I'm going to show you how to make some homemade gravy, homemade crackling gravy. So without further ado, we're going to get into this. My grease is getting warm. I'm going to go ahead and start flouring up my squirrel. And this gets a little messy, but hey, that's half the fun of frying squirrel. Try and use one hand here to put the squirrel in, kind of keep it clean, because your flouring hand is going to get bad messy. These were pretty young squirrels, so they ought to be pretty good to eat. Keep flipping, keep turning. About halfway there. I know what y'all are probably thinking, my gosh, that's a bunch of squirrel to put down in one pan. It is. It'll be a frying pan full, but we're gonna put it all down in there at once. If you would put this individually in there and leave lots of space, you might have to cook 2 or 3 panfuls, but we're going to do it all in one cooking here. Just need a bigger bowl. And if you don't know how to clean a squirrel or how to quarter one up, there's some really great resources at agfc.com that you can go to our website. There's one really good video on there. I believe it's Clifton Jackson that shows how to clean a squirrel. A really good video. All right, so our squirrel's all floured. Our grease is dancing. Looks like it's ready to have the squirrel put in. Just going to fill this skillet up. The grease temperature's falling a little bit, but that's okay. It'll come back up here in just a minute. Putting this much stuff in there, it'll cool down pretty quick. Now, what my dad also does is he always seasons the squirrel, which is a little different than the way I normally cook it, but he always seasons it in the skillet as it's cooking. So a little flour, a little pepper,
salt,
a little salt, excuse me, sea salt. I call that flour.
Yeah, you did.
Now what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and cover it. Now this could take 10 or 15 minutes to brown on one side, and then we'll flip it over and let the other side cook. So this does take a little bit of time to fry this much squirrel. So we'll go ahead and cover it and let it cook down. And we have been cooking this squirrel now for about 15 minutes. And I have been flipping this squirrel about every 5 minutes. So this is going on, I think, about my 4th time here to turn this squirrel. And the key is to just keep turning it. Keep flipping it over. You can see it'll all come out at the exact same time, even though there's some bigger pieces in here. It's all going to come out perfect. So yeah, this has been cooking again for about 15 minutes, flipping it about every 5. And we're probably about another 4 or 5 minutes from it being done. And as soon as this comes out of the grease, I'll show you how to make some gravy out of the cracklings of this. Okay, our squirrel's been cooking now for right at 20 minutes, and I'm going to call this done. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and plate our squirrel. We'll set this over to the side. It doesn't need any salt and pepper because we already did that back when we first put the squirrel in. Some people like to salt and pepper after the fact, after they've fried their food. Some people like to salt and pepper during. Usually I like to do it after the fact. I like the texture of having the salt on the fried food, but since we're doing this Dan Walker method, we went ahead and salt and peppered it while it was cooking. Now, if you look inside this frying pan, you'll see all those what I call cracklings. That's all those little pieces of fried flour that have got all that salt and pepper and squirrel goodness all over them. That's what we're going to use to make our gravy. So, I'm going to very carefully pour that grease out of this pan. I didn't have a lid big enough for this skillet, so we just used a pizza pan. That works fine too. So I'm going to pour off all this extra grease. You need to leave just a little bit of grease in the bottom of the pan to do this. Not a lot, just a little. Probably about a teaspoon or something. If you look, that's how much grease I'm leaving in the bottom of the pan to help make my gravy. So cracklings, just a little bit of grease. You pour that grease out, you might accidentally get a little on the side. Best to wipe that off now. Alright, now what I need to do is I need to cook down a little bit of flour. If you've ever made a roux or anything, this is kind of the same way it starts. A little bit of grease, a little bit of flour. So I'm going to put a little flour in here. You don't want to get it too hot. You do not want to burn the flour, you just want to cook it. So I'm just going to put a little flour in here, and that will help thicken this up and make the gravy that we want for our mashed potatoes that I cooked right before the squirrel. So we want to stir this around. Be very careful not to burn it. Low heat's best. You can tell when it starts to get ready by that flour thickening up a little bit and turning that golden brown color. Okay. If you feel like it's getting a little too hot, just remove it from the heat, set it to the side. Now I'm going to add in some milk. I'll probably add about a cup. Get a little more. And then we just want to start cooking this down, letting that milk soak up all those little bits of goodness down in there. This is about as southern of a meal as you can get. If you're a resident of Arkansas and you have not had fried squirrel and then use the cracklings to make gravy on top of your mashed potatoes, you're doing something wrong. This is a really, really good homemade gravy. Just keep cooking down that milk. You can add a little bit of salt. So I didn't call it flour then. Maybe a little more pepper here. Keep cooking it down. You can see it starts to really thicken up. Alright. Call that good. Over my gravy into another bowl. homemade gravy, and that goes really good on top of those homemade mashed potatoes. Hey, we hope that you've enjoyed this recipe. Please like our Facebook page and follow us on Facebook for more great programs coming from the Forest Elwood Crowley's Ridge Nature Center here in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Thanks for watching.